In a picturesque neighborhood where the streets were lined with tall, majestic trees and every garden bloomed with an array of vibrant colors, there lived a little girl named Emily. Emily was known throughout the area for her boundless curiosity and her heart as warm and welcoming as the summer sun. Her days were filled with wonder as she explored every nook and cranny of her surroundings, always seeking new adventures. Emily's home was a charming house with a sprawling backyard that seemed like a tiny paradise. The yard was adorned with flowering shrubs, a small swing set, and a wooden playhouse where Emily spent countless hours creating imaginary worlds. Her favorite pastime was to play outside, letting her imagination run wild as she interacted with the flora and fauna of her garden. One bright and cheerful morning, as Emily was engrossed in her usual game of pretending to be an explorer in her backyard, she heard a faint, but persistent, mewing sound. The sound was so soft that it seemed almost like a whisper carried by the breeze. Emily's keen ears immediately picked up on the sound, and her curiosity was piqued. She followed the sound with quick, determined steps, her little feet rustling through the fallen leaves. As she approached a cluster of dense bushes near the edge of the yard, Emily carefully parted the branches. There, nestled among the green leaves and twigs, was a tiny, trembling kitten. The kitten's fur was soft and slightly ruffled, and its eyes, which were as bright as the morning stars, seemed to shine with a mix of fear and curiosity. Emily's heart melted at the sight of the tiny creature. She gently reached out and with a soothing voice, whispered, "Don't worry, little one. I'm here to help you." She scooped the kitten into her arms, cradling it with the utmost care. The kitten seemed to sense Emily's kindness, and its initial trembling subsided as it snuggled against her chest. Determined to find the kitten's home, Emily knew she had to act quickly. She carefully carried the kitten back into her house, where she made sure it was comfortable and safe in a small, cozy box lined with a soft blanket. She then set out on a mission to reunite the lost kitten with its owner. Emily's neighborhood was a close-knit community where everyone knew each other, so she started by knocking on the doors of her neighbors. Her first stop was Mr. Thompson's house, a place known for its well-maintained garden and the smell of freshly baked bread wafting from the kitchen window. Mr. Thompson, a kindly man with a warm smile and a twinkle in his eye, answered the door. Emily explained her situation, describing the kitten in detail. Mr. Thompson listened intently, his face showing concern. Unfortunately, he didn't recognize the kitten and couldn't help. He offered Emily a sympathetic pat on the shoulder and wished her luck in her search. Emily continued her quest, visiting several more homes in the neighborhood. At each stop, she described the kitten to the best of her ability, hoping that someone would recognize it. She knocked on the doors of the Johnsons, the Millers, and even Mrs. Peters, an elderly lady who often tended to her beautiful rose garden. Despite her efforts, Emily's search seemed to be in vain. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, she began to feel a bit discouraged. The kitten's meows had grown softer, and she hoped that it was simply resting and not feeling too distressed. Feeling a bit disheartened, but not ready to give up, Emily decided to take a break in the local park, which was a short walk from her home. The park was a lovely spot, with a large open space filled with lush green grass, shady trees, and a serene pond where ducks often paddled about. It was a place where people came to relax, and Emily thought she might find someone who could offer a clue about the kitten's owner. As she wandered through the park, Emily noticed an elderly woman sitting alone on a bench beneath a large oak tree. The woman had silver hair neatly tied in a bun and wore a floral dress that seemed to blend perfectly with the vibrant surroundings. Emily's heart skipped a beat. She had seen this woman around the neighborhood before, and she seemed to have a gentle and kind demeanor. With renewed hope, Emily approached the woman and gently held out the kitten for her to see. "Excuse me, ma'am," Emily said politely. "I found this little kitten in my backyard, and I'm trying to find out where it belongs. Do you recognize it?" The old woman's eyes widened in surprise as she took a good look at the kitten. A look of recognition and relief crossed her face, and she said with a warm smile, "Oh my goodness, I know this kitten. He belongs to Mrs. Rose. She lives just down the street from here. Emily's face brightened with excitement and relief. Thank you so much. I was getting worried. Do you know how I can find Mrs. Rose's house? The woman nodded and provided Emily with clear directions. It's the white house with the red door, right across from the corner store. You can't miss it. With a heart full of hope, Emily thanked the woman and hurried towards Mrs. Rose's house. The neighborhood was bustling with activity, and the streets were lined with people going about their daily routines. Emily navigated her way through the familiar streets, her steps quickening as she approached the red door she had been directed to. When she arrived at Mrs. Rose's house, she noticed that the front porch was empty and the garden was meticulously cared for, with rows of neatly trimmed hedges and blooming flowers. Emily could see an elderly woman pacing back and forth on the porch, her expression a mix of anxiety and concern. Emily approached the porch and, with a bit of hesitation, called out, "Excuse me, Mrs. Rose? I believe I have something that belongs to you." Mrs. Rose looked up, her eyes full of hope and worry. When she saw the kitten in Emily's arms, her face lit up with a mixture of relief and joy. "Oh, my goodness, that's my little Jasper. I thought I had lost him forever." With tears of gratitude in her eyes, Mrs. Rose hurried down the steps and gently took Jasper from Emily's arms. She cradled the kitten close, her voice trembling with emotion as she whispered, "Thank you so much, dear. I was so worried. I don't know what I would have done without him." Emily smiled warmly, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction and happiness. "I'm just glad I could help," she said softly. Mrs. Rose's gratitude didn't stop there. She invited Emily inside for a cup of tea and some freshly baked cookies, wanting to thank her properly. Emily, though eager to get back to her own home, gladly accepted the invitation. As they sat together at the kitchen table, Mrs. Rose shared stories about Jasper and the many adventures they had enjoyed together. During their conversation, Emily learned that Mrs. Rose had lived in the neighborhood for many years and had a deep love for animals. She had adopted Jasper from a local animal shelter and had been his devoted caretaker ever since. Emily and Mrs. Rose discovered they had a lot in common, especially their shared passion for animals and their belief in the power of kindness. As they talked, Emily and Mrs. Rose grew closer. Mrs. Rose shared her own experiences of kindness and community, and Emily recounted her own adventures and the joy she found in helping others. By the end of their visit, they had forged a genuine friendship, one built on mutual respect and shared values. From that day forward, Emily and Mrs. Rose continued to stay in touch. They often met for tea and chatted about their lives, and Mrs. Rose even introduced Emily to some of her animal friends, including Jasper, who had become a beloved part of both their lives. Their bond was a testament to the power of kindness and the way small acts of compassion can bring people together. Emily's act of returning Jasper to his rightful owner had not only reunited a lost kitten with his caring guardian, but had also created a lasting friendship between two kindred spirits. As time went on, Emily and Mrs. Rose became inseparable friends, often seen walking together in the park, tending to their gardens, or simply enjoying each other's company. Their connection was a reminder to everyone in the neighborhood of the importance of looking out for one another and the beauty of simple acts of kindness. The lesson from their story spread throughout the community, touching the hearts of many. It became a cherished tale told and retold, reminding everyone that even the smallest acts of kindness can make a profound difference in the world. The moral of Emily and the Lost Kitten's story was clear. Through compassion and a helping hand, we can create connections and make the world a better place, one small gesture at a time. And so, in the heart of that cozy neighborhood, where the tall trees whispered secrets and the colorful gardens bloomed with joy, the tale of Emily and the Lost Kitten lived on, inspiring others to embrace kindness and nurture the bonds of friendship.